Hello everybody, this is Tip-Top MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, we are looking at a bunch of custom Magic cards from the subreddit r/custom magic. I filtered by best of the week and picked out some of my favorites. We're going to talk about them. I'm going to talk about why maybe they're really awesome, why they may have some problems, why they may be too overpowered, or why some wording needs to change. But generally, we're just going to look at 10 cards, and I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on them. I think this is really fun. It kind of emulates that spoiler season feeling that we are getting into coming up here very quickly with Keldheim. So why don't we jump right into this? Starting off, we have Braid of Creation. First off, before I go any further, you can see which Reddit user made it in the upper left-hand corner. I did not make any of the cards in this video, so yes, all credit goes to these people. So, Braid of Creation is a 2-cost red and green enchantment with cumulative upkeep, and it says add red or green. So this is a reference to Braid of Fire, which is a red card that basically says cumulative upkeep, add red, which essentially means that every turn you're going to get an extra red mana. Now, when it was first designed, mana burn was a thing, meaning that if you generated 10 mana, you'd be taking 10 damage if you let that mana go away. And since it happened up your upkeep, it wouldn't let you'd have to be able to do something at instant speed or activate an ability. As soon as mana burn goes away, the card gets a lot more powerful, as there's not a harsh restriction if you can't cast or do something with it. Now, this is kind of a play on that, except it's multicolor, and what it does is it says, spend this mana only to cast spells. So right off the bat, it's already somewhat weaker. It can't activate abilities, which is a lot of the reason why you would run Braid of Fire. But it also says, until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, which I think makes this really, really overpowered. But then there's one line that brings it all right back down to a normal level, maybe not standard level, but I think in Commander, this would be a completely fair card. When you lose unspent mana, sacrifice Braid of Creation. So you're going to get all this mana, and if you can't spend it all, so it's kind of bringing back mana burn, but instead of it hurting you, it hurts your card. It murders Braid of Creation. So the first round you're going to earn 1 mana, so you'll probably be able to do something with that. Second time, probably, but once you get up to generating like 9 mana, you're going to have a ton of mana, but it's probably going to wear off, and that's going to be a lot of buildup for 1 turn. So yeah, I think it is fair for something like Commander. It would be very horribly overpowered in something like Standard, in my opinion. However, it is a little bit slow, so I don't know how good it would be in really older formats besides Commander, because Commander is a much longer game due to the multiplayer nature of it. Either way, let's move on. We have Reyes Harnessed Might. It's a green or white. Legendary creature Elemental. It's a 3/3 with vigilance, and it says, if an effect would cause the power and toughness of a creature to increase by an equal amount, put that many +1/+1 counters on it instead. Now, first thing I want to say, the wording's a little weird here, but the general idea is if you have a spell that says target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn, it basically turns that card into put 3 +1/+1 counters on target creature. Now, if it is +2/+1, you get no cards, and I think actually the fact that this is a hybrid card is one of the most fair and balanced hybrid cards I've ever seen. Green cares about boosting up its creatures, and it also cares about counters. And white also has lots of combat tricky ambushes, and also cares about +1/+1 counters. So I think this makes a lot of sense. I think it's very interesting and different, and I like commanders that are like that. So there may be a little bit of a wording change there, but other than that, I think it's a very interesting concept, and kind of a new take for Selesnya there. Next we have Unseen Predators. It's a 5-cost blue and green enchantment. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, scry 1, then manifest the top card of your library, which means put it on the battlefield face down. You can turn it up for its mana cost if it's a creature. And then you can morph it for 3, so the spell itself, you can play it as a 2/2 creature and then flip it over to be a 3-cost, which can be kind of cool. It can be a trick, like, oh, your opponent's about to combo off or something, or cast lots of spells. You can, in response, flip this face up, and then maybe now they have to cast spells into this and they weren't expecting it or something. So yeah, pretty cool. Now, I think it's horribly overpowered as well. The fact that whenever an opponent casts a spell, you get a 2/2, and not only that 2/2 was first off scry, can turn into a creature, but also that creature was scryed, meaning that you knew what was there, It's not, yeah. The one disadvantage this has is that you have to manifest. So if your opponents are able to cast an equal number of spells as you have cards in your library, which is very unlikely, you're going to start milling yourself a little bit. But yeah, I think this would be a very overpowered card. It is, of course, in Simic, so maybe that is fitting. But yeah, I think it doesn't even need Morph Tribal to really work. It could just work on its own. It is a very big value engine, and I think it's a little bit too powerful, but I could totally see them printing something like this. Next, we have Lathamir The Shrew. It's a 1 red, white, black legendary creature human rogue 2/5, and it says discard a target card and tap to draw a card. Whenever you discard a creature card, create a food token. Whenever you discard a land card, create a treasure. And whenever you discard a non-creature, non-land, create a clue token. So this is a deck that's going to encourage you to make people discard, but it's going to encourage you to make yourself discard. Now, what I expect would happen here is you'd play a lot of the cards that make everybody discard, because yes, you could spend your card and your, mana to discard a card, whether it be Thrill of Possibilities, which makes you discard a card and you draw a card, or just a straight discard spell, or you could have a spell that is generally cheaper because you're going to make everyone discard a card, including yourself, and now you're negatively affecting your opponents and you're gaining a slight value. Especially if you're discarding non-creature, non-lands, you get clues, which then turn back into cards. So I think it has a lot of interesting potential. It's ramp, it's life gain, and it's card draw, which are all very cool things to do in Commander outside of maybe life gain. So yeah, I think it's an interesting card, and I could totally see people building around it. Maybe not my particular thing, but I think it's built in an interesting way. I honestly think it could do without the activated ability even. I think it has enough ground to stand on. Next, we have Fate Shaper. It's a 3-cost blue and black creature, human wizard, 1/2. At the beginning of your opponent's upkeep, they choose upkeep, draw, step, or combat phase. You get an additional instance of the chosen step or phase at the end of the first instant of that phase during your next turn. So basically, what this card's supposed to do is one opponent is going to name something upkeep, and then you're going to get 2 upkeeps next time you have an upkeep. So you'll go, untap, upkeep, upkeep, draw. Or they could say, combat, and then you'd go, you would go main phase, combat, combat, main phase, which really doesn't seem that useful to me unless you have a creature with like vigilance. But yeah, so basically I think what this is supposed to do is you're supposed to choose like target opponent or every opponent. If it's every opponent, this card is horribly overpowered. If it's a single opponent, they're going to choose combat, and unless you have a bunch of vigilant creatures, it's not going to do anything. So I think it's horribly underpowered if it's one person. It's also horribly overpowered if it's multiple. But also, if you're not playing vigilant creatures, they're just going to choose combat unless you have some sort of combat trigger. So yeah, they're just going to choose what's worst for you. And I think, honestly, the choices are a little too vague in order to be able to always make sure you're getting a good deal out of it. Next, we have Mara Bloodcaster. It's a 4-cost black legendary creature, human warlock, 3/3 with lifelink. And whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Mara. And when you can remove a blood counter from her to add black, and spend this mana only to cast demon spells. So if you pay 2 life to shock in a shockland, you actually are adding 2 black mana, but you can only use it to cast demons. So the idea is you're summoning demons by sacrificing your life. I think it's very, 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 very like lore heavy, or I'm trying to think of the word here, like Vorthos-y, like, you are doing it based, it's very, what it's trying to represent is doing incredibly well, but it also finds a way to be very interesting and dynamic with you wanting to pay life and having big demons. Those often go well together as well. So I think it's an awesome design and something that is somewhat new. I mean, we've seen, I don't know if they're blood counters, but in Ravnica Allegiance, Font of Agnes cared about when you paid life, so that would go in this deck as well. Very, very interesting. I would totally build this. Next, we have Genesis Slime. It's a green or a blue for a 1/1 creature ooze, but if it's a token, it gets +4/+4. So if you can make a token copy of this, it becomes a 5/5. And I don't know why I like this card so much. I just think the concept of a card that its whole purpose is to be copied is really fascinating. I think it could have even been interesting to make it maybe go +3/+3, but say like tokens you control named Genesis Slime get +3/+3. Or as long as this is a token, oozes you control get +3/+3. I want something where like if you can copy it multiple times, they get like exponentially bigger. I think that could be really cool. But yeah, generally I like the idea. It's something that we don't have a lot of, and yeah, I like it. Next we have Ivrax Newt Razor. It's a 3-cost red and white legendary creature cleric 3/3, and it has vigilance. And then you can tap and sacrifice a token, whether that's creature or treasure or clue or whatever, and reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a permanent card with CMC 1. Put that card onto the battlefield and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. I can totally see this going in a combo deck. I mean, if one of the pieces of your combo, or even maybe all the pieces of your combo, are like 1-drops, you sacrifice some tokens, then you're going to go guaranteed get a 1-drop. On top of that, you can just be very selective with your 1-drops, and I'm referring to Commander at this point. And like, oh, so you're always going to hit either a Soul Ring or this or that, and they're all going to be really good choices. However, I feel like if you're going to be selective about it, you're only going to be able to use your commander a couple of times. And if you're being not selective about it, you're probably going to, be unhappy a lot of the time with what you get. So I think that there's a very delicate balance you have to walk if you're building this commander. And because of that, I'm not a huge fan of it. But it is an interesting kind of card draw kind of effect, but it's also kind of mana cheating. It's definitely interesting. And I would be weird. I'd have to see it in gameplay to really give it a good assessment, because it is very versatile. You can do a lot with it, and I feel like that is a very good part about it. A lot of commanders that come from Wizards of the Coast feel like they are very obviously wanting you to do one thing. However, I like those commanders that you can kind of go in multiple directions with them. I mean, I think Golos is a good example of this. You can use them for the land ETB, you can use it for the mana cost, you can use it for the fact that it's just a generic 5-color deck that has a commander that's colorless. So even if you're not technically playing all 5 colors, you can still cast it. I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's really great. Next we have Chain to the Sea. It's a 1-cost white enchantment aura, and it says enchant untapped island. It doesn't have to be yours. When Chain to the Sea enters the battlefield, exile target creature until it leaves the battlefield. So it's an exile effect on enchantment, but whenever Enchanted Island becomes tapped, sacrifice Chain to the Sea and draw a card, which then returns the creature. So you can kind of trap the creature on the island, and then if you ever need the island, you can return the creature back to the battlefield and draw a card. This can be a flicker effect, and I would actually consider this to be a pretty good flicker effect. Of course, you do need to be an Azorius to really run this card, but yeah, for a 1-cost flicker, pretty good, especially when that flicker also draws you a card, so it replaces itself. And it can also be, if you need it to, a removal spell. So I think for 1 mana, it is a pretty crazy card, because it can do all those things. It can be a removal spell, it can be a card draw cycler, it can flicker your creatures and replace itself. It's very cool, and I really like it. However, it is a little bit restricted. I do want to mention that it is very kind of restrictive on what you have to do. Next we have Hazar, Voice of Silence. It's a white, blue, and black legendary creature spirit 2/2, and has flash and flying. It says other spirits you control have lifelink and menace, so yep, you're going to want to put this with spirits, but also if a permanent would trigger an ability upon entering the battlefield, it triggers upon leaving the battlefield instead, and that is a universal effect. So that includes your opponent's stuff, your stuff. How you probably really want to play this is to play a bunch of creatures that all have ETB abilities, and then once they're on the battlefield, play Hazar, then you maybe board wipe, and then all of those ETB abilities trigger again when they leave the battlefield. You also may want to run this in a deck that does a lot of flickering with things like Thassa and Soul Herder. Very interesting in that matter. It also has flash, meaning if your opponent's about to have something that has an awesome ETB, you can flash this out and stop it, at least temporarily. For instance, if they play it and then you flash this out, they don't get the ETB ability, and then if you can either blink this or bring it back to your hand or something, then it also doesn't get the exit the battlefield ability, which it normally would. So you can almost just shut off enter the battlefield abilities, and you can also use it to your own. It's a kind of stacksy commander that I think has a lot of interesting potential. It is more interesting than the typical card that's just like, you can't do X. So I think I like it more than a normal stacks card. Alright guys, that is going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, please hit that like button. I have a whole playlist of these in my channel, so if you want to go look at more custom cards and see some other awesome custom Magic stuff I do, there's probably a card to it right here. If you enjoyed, again, hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.